I'm very pleased to say that after waiting for several months to catch up with her again, today is the day that I'm meeting Rachel Goodfellow, founder of the Hidden Needs Trust. I am really looking forward to this.
Rachel is not only the founder of the Hidden Needs Trust, which specialises in helping those families who have children with special educational needs, she's also the chair of trustees and indeed the main fundraiser. If that wasn't enough, I knew that partly because of the lockdowns that she'd been involved in several other things, and I was really keen to find out more.
So please tell me, Rachel, what has been happening?
Well, as you can imagine, it has been rather hectic. And going back to the podcast that we did together, it's moved on greatly. I mean, at the time, during the first lockdown, we were giving out boxes of goodies that had been quarantined to the families. Some just fun gifts for the families because obviously they were just very isolated and stuck at home. And some to families that were really, really struggling. And if you go back to that, you'll hear all about that. And then, of course, we had the second lockdown and absolute disaster. Winter months, the old SAD syndrome, and it was just awful. And I suddenly thought, we've just got to help these families even more and look and nurture at all their planes of health. So not just the physical ones, but you can imagine the isolation leading to emotional distress, mental distress. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have to sort of up my game a bit. And fortunately, being very much involved in the charity world, I've got a little black book of loads of people that can help. And so I would invite people to say, literally, what do you need absolutely right now? And it could be something that Hidden Needs Trust couldn't help with, but certainly signposting very much to other organisations. And of course that meant we were networking even more together, which is something that I'm really passionate about. And then I thought, okay, what else can I do? And 4 particular things cropped to mind. The first were the young carers. I mean, they were potentially caring for people before and after school, and that was bad enough. Then having to homeschool as well, plus perhaps siblings with additional needs in the mix, maybe parents being furloughed or even losing jobs. They were having an awful time. And fortunately, a lovely lady stepped forward who lives in a village near here called Claire Riles, who's got a small holding, mainly ponies, but donkey and hens and doves and all sorts of things. And she said, look, I'd love to give you some goods, but what I'd really like is to give you some of my time for young carers, which was an absolute heartwarming. It really was, because I always used to say to my boys, if you don't worry about giving goods, give your time to people. That's what's really important. And so once a month we have young carers going with their mentors to this small holding, and they have an absolute ball for 3 or 4 hours. It is just amazing, lovely, and they send photographs back that we can put on the website and so on. So we're putting up this sort of portfolio of loveliness, if you like, with these young carers. And of course it's really important for them to say, you are important, you are doing a sterling job and you need nurturing as well. And I don't think it's done enough. So thank you, Claire, if you're going to listen. And of course, other organisations, we've linked in with a lot with the Dorset Carers Hub, which are the most fantastic organisation. If you don't know about them and you're in Dorset, just ping me a message, because they do the most amazing range of work as well. And also 2 other organisations, the YMCA and an organisation called Julian House. Again, we sort of work together. I support families going into their new housing, quite often producing literally everything you need to set up a home. Families or young people that have got a rucksack on their back and nothing else. And so, yeah, we do that. And then, of course, the orphanage, the international link, that came to a bit of a grinding halt, which was really sad. There were 4 of us on the case. We had a shipment all ready to be sort of loaded up and going. And even the route was planned out, going via Mombasa, then up and over, I can't remember which way it went then, and then hit the Ugandan border, and then all the way down to Kasisi. And we had lots of people sort of trying to sort of see how we could work this. We had to miss the flooding time, and sadly they had amazing floods this time, absolutely awful, lost lives, all sorts. And anyway, a chap in Australia, that's right, Australia, he suddenly messaged and said, Rachel, I do this for a pastime, let me look into this for you. And he gets all sorts of bits out to Kenya and goodness knows what. Well, I'm so grateful to him, because he then emailed and said, Rachel, you just don't bother, just don't get the stuff out there. And apparently what was happening was that a lot of charitable goods were being stopped at the Ugandan border and just abandoned. Well, abandoned, we probably know what's happening to them, and just it would never have got down to the orphanage and the villagers. And I remember opening the garage, and it was stuffed, it's double garage, stuffed literally to the brim, and it had everything from baby weighing scales to personal hygiene things, nappies, you name it, we had it for not just the orphanage, but we had school stuff, we had bits for those children that still live with grandparents, because of course their parents had all died of HIV and AIDS. Just masses and masses of stuff. And down in near Bia Regis we had hospital beds, you name it. And I remember opening it up, having heard this news, and how I didn't burst into tears I just don't know. But fortunately, one of the Dorset Carers Hub ministers, actually, his mum happened to come up to collect something, and she just put her hand on my arm and she said, you'll find a way. And I thought, yes, I'm jolly well going to find a way to somehow do this. And so I thought, right, there's only one way to do it, and that's to sell all the goods for as much as we can and get the money direct into the bank account for the orphanage. And we did loads and loads of checks. We did Zoom meetings with the ministers, we did Zoom meetings with one of the leaders there. We had another Ugandan who was building an orphanage higher up for them, and very young entrepreneur. He immediately went and saw them and said, right, we've got to get this right. And we did it. And so once a month we have a sale from my Hidden Needs Trust headquarters, and I just basically sell anything and everything I can. And the first couple of months we managed to send the equivalent of £50 over each month, and then we paid the costs as well, because either end we have to pay a cost. And then, because word's now got round, I'm getting really decent goods donated, but we're now sort of able to send each month over 100, and for them that is a massive amount of money. And they are lovely. They photograph all the bank receipts, they photograph the days and times it's gone into the account, then we get photographs of what they've bought, and then with the children, and it is just lovely to see. You know, not as good as we'd hoped, but it's still there, that link is still there. And of course all these children have got special needs, you know, big time. And so, I mean, I could go on and on with the things that have been carrying on, but of course now we're thinking ahead to 2022. Can we now start planning all these big events again? And yes, but we won't stop doing what we've been doing, because it's opened up more avenues which are just as important.
Thank you. Finding myself both bowled over and humbled in equal measures by what Rachel had been telling me, I remembered that I hadn't asked her about her training regime, the one that keeps her ready to face the next grueling mental and physical challenge. But then something else struck me. There was a much more existential question. The question, I suppose, at the heart of all this. What kept her going? Why did she do it? What exactly was giving her the energy, the fuel, the motivation?
So, listening to all that, one of the things that, in fact, the thing I really should be asking, because that's phenomenal, is the why question. And what I mean by that is, you're doing all that, it's incredible. What drives you? What is driving you?
Well, I think several things. First of all, I had the most amazing mum and grandmother, maternal grandmother, who gave me all the tools that I needed to do charitable work. So right away from a very early age, that's what I wanted to do. But life for me growing up was hard at times, really hard. For example, I've always, and I still do, suffer from tremendous low self-esteem, and I know how awful that is. And when you're a carer, your self-esteem can go down the tubes because you've suddenly had to give everything up. Your life as a whole is completely changed, and maybe everything you've worked for is gone. So there's that. I was a physio student many years ago now, and I succumbed to anorexia. And at that moment in time, I had an additional need, and there was nobody there to guide me through it so that I could continue, and I became really quite ill. So there's that element of the carers and the young people as well. And I became a single parent at 22, hadn't really got a clue, but luckily then trained in lots of therapies and teaching and so on and so forth. And again, there was nobody there. There was nobody that said, we will give you some guidance, we will be there as a net of support, if you like. There was no groups of people to ask advice for. So hence, you know, if a young mum, we've got a lot of young, very, very young mums, we're talking teen mums that have got babies, and 2 or 3 of them have got additional needs. And yet again, you know, we've got to give these folk help, because at the end of the day, I really struggled in the bad times, and there's no way, if I can do anything to help, even if it's a tiny amount, that's what it's about, isn't it?
Fantastic. What a powerful insight into what may be driving people like Rachel to do those incredible things that make such an amazing and positive difference out there.